The story happens. The son of a person's walking on the street. They get into an accident. They rush to the hospital. In the hospital, they find out that he only has very few hours to live. He's in a coma. The doctors say there's no way that he could recuperate. They figure out that they want to bring a priest. They're not exactly sure who to bring, take care of him. Finally figure out, he's a student of Kabbalah. They bring the Kabbalists to give him, whatever, Christians give final rites. Not exactly sure what other people do. We do vidui. That's what we do. We do there's a process that's done before death that the Kabbalists do. So the Kabbalist is brought to do the, and simultaneously, they're trying to find the father of this person who was in an accident. And they find the father. They say the father. They don't want to tell the father the situation. They want to tell him slowly. They don't tell him immediately. They want to tell him slowly, so he doesn't go in complete shock. So they tell him, your son was in an accident. Okay. Says, okay, let me go see him in the hospital. Comes to the hospital. He talks to the doctors. The doctors say, the situation isn't good. Again, they're doing it slowly. He says, yeah, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. He says, I don't think you understand how bad the situation is. He's in a coma. He says, yeah, it's fine. He says, he may not have months. Yeah, don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. He says, he may not even have weeks. He says, whatever you say is not true. He says, he may have days or even hours. He says, I don't care what you say, I'm going to go home. He says, maybe you shouldn't go home. He may not make the night. He says, I don't care what you're saying, he's going to be fine. And the guy goes home. The father of the child goes home. And everyone's like shocked. He says, what do you mean you go home? You don't go home, you stay with the child. He says, as is, you should stay with the child if the child is in a coma in ICU. What do you mean you're going home? You're not going to stay with the child? He's in a coma? No, it's okay. I'm going to go home. Goes home. Next day comes, he says, how's he doing? He says, same thing. He says, but I really think you should stay here. He says, nah. Just come and stay here, say a prayer, I'm going to go home. 2, 3, 4 days. Eventually the child wakes up from his coma. Against what the doctors predict. A week later, he actually started talking against what the doctors predict. Slowly he makes a recovery. The 1 in a billion chance that he could recover, he recovered. This was too much for the people involved. The doctor, the guy who did the vidui, all these people go to the father. He says, we don't understand. Originally, we diagnosed your son with a couple of hours to live. And it didn't bother you. You had certainty. What's the story behind this? He says, 30, 40 years ago, I went to Kabbalists. He gave me a blessing. For whatever reason, he gave me a blessing. He gave me a blessing for long life, but also that my children would always outlive me. So I knew the Kabbalists gave a blessing. Kabbalists gave a blessing that my children, I would have a long life, and my children would have a long life. And I knew that I have to become, the blessing of the Kabbalists has to come true. And that's why I knew that nothing would happen to my son. And when we talk about certainty is not a jingle that you hear. It's not the "Just Do It" by Nike. It's not what's the tagline? Cleansing the soul. It's not a tagline. It's not a jingle you hear on the TV and McDonald's, I'm loving it, right? All these things. It's not, in Hebrew you say sisma. It's not like something we say, a slogan, yeah, the word. A slogan. It's not a slogan. It's real. And it's tested live. It's not tested, in a laboratory. It's not tested in theory. It's tested live. It's tested live. We know this. We know that today, right now it's Saturday night. We could have all the signs in the world that it's Tuesday, January 1st. We're not going to believe it because we know that it's Saturday night, April 3rd. Yeah? Okay. 3rd and 4th or 2nd and 3rd? Okay. 2nd, somewhere in Australia it's the 5th, no? And in New Zealand it's the 5th. But it's tested live. So certain things, we just, whatever, we would say, but certain things we're like, maybe it is like that. Our certainty is tested on the spot. We have to retain the certainty. If the father of this child said, oh my God, my son was in an accident. Oh my God, maybe da. If he would have lost his certainty, he would have lost the blessing of the Kabbalist that told him he was going to have a long life and his children have a long life. He would have lost everything. But because he retained the certainty, his son retained the miracle. His son retained the blessing. The moment we lose our certainty, we lose the blessings of the Kabbalist, we lose the protection of the Zohar, we lose everything. Certainty is tested on the spot. Certainty is tested live. If the father would have had doubts, he would have lost his son. Even though the Kabbalist gave his blessing. Even though in the universal law he should have lived, but if he had doubts, he would have killed his son. This is how powerful certainty is that can make us live. And this is how messed up doubts are that can make us die. Student of Rabbi Melave was marrying off his only daughter, and no one wanted to miss the wedding. Rabbi Chaim of Tzanz was a student of Rabbi Melave, and she was not only, and Rabbi Chaim of Tzanz, not only his children are beautiful inside because of everything that they put into it, but they were also beautiful on the outside. The father and the mother, Chaim of Tzanz and his wife, and their child, their daughter, is about to leave the house. And they're starting to leave the house towards the place where the ceremony is going to be. And they start walking. And on the way, when they're walking, Reb Chaim asks the people around him, he says, did you hear that? He says, no, we didn't hear that. He says, you sure you didn't hear that? I thought I heard someone crying. And they said, no one's crying. And they keep on walking. He says, you sure? He says, someone's crying, I have to find them. And they go in and look. And sure enough, there was one of the paupers, one of the regular folk of the town. And she's crying. She's in the corner and she's crying. And Reb Chaim goes to him and says, why are you crying? He says, well, I know that tonight is your daughter's wedding, but tonight I'm also getting married. We have a little ceremony, a little this. He says, look at me. He says, see these, this is what I wear every day. We don't have anything to buy the clothing for the wedding. So Chaim says, 1 second. He goes to his daughter and he says, would you mind switching clothing with this person? Because your beauty is on the inside. You don't need these, fancy clothing that one of my students sewed for you. And he says, would you mind? He says, for sure not. And they switch clothing. And Reb Chaim Tzanz's daughter put on the clothing of the poor person. The poor person wore the clothing of Reb Chaim Tzanz's daughter, which was done by one of the students and probably the best wool or cotton from Egypt or whatever. And they switched. And all the students of Reb Chaim said that they never saw a bride look so beautiful under the chuppah as the daughter of Reb Chaim of Tzanz with her rags that she was wearing. Because it's never something that's external. But more importantly, the reason why she looked like that wasn't just because of who she was, but that she was willing to switch the clothing with this other person. Because there's nothing that reveals light as much as when we share something of ours to somebody else. But sharing is, it's easy to share when it doesn't really cost us anything, right? I give you something that I don't need to use anymore. Here's for you. That's easy. But when the question is, will I use it and I really need it? Or I'll give it to you and you could use it. And maybe I will lack something and you still share it anyway? That's the biggest sharing. When we give up something, like this daughter, she gave up her wedding gown for, who knows what it was. She gave that up. She says, no, I want her to be happy. The way we could guarantee happiness is when we give happiness to somebody else. The way we can be guaranteed that we'll be full is when we give fulfillment to somebody else. It says, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Ashrechem Yisrael, the Israelites are blessed. How do we get purified? It says, Avinu Shebashem, the Creator purifies us. And it says, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. It says that the Creator purifies us. But where does the Creator himself, purify himself? Where does the Creator go to, figurative mikveh? It says, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. The Israelites are the place where the Creator goes to be purified. What does it mean? The Creator purifies himself in the hearts of the Israelites. When we do actions of pure sharing, when we open our hearts for really open our hearts for someone, and we do an act of sharing that's not normal, when we help somebody else, when everything is telling us not to do, and we share anyway, then it's Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. That's where the Creator goes to purify himself. That's where the Creator goes to mikveh. In the hearts of the Israelites, in all of us, when we do extraordinary acts of sharing. Not just when we share. Because we're all decent people. We all go and sometimes we share with someone. That's nothing. To share when we're decent people. To share when it actually feels on a 1%, maybe we're actually giving something up. Maybe it's actually going to cost me something, but we do it anyway. When sharing, when somebody else's happiness is even a little more important than our happiness, that's where the Creator resides. That's when it says, Karov Hashem, the Creator is close to anyone, anyone who calls him out, truly calls him out. How do you call him out? How is it that some people pray and they're answered? Some people are called and they're answered, and some people aren't? Because some of us sometimes share of ourselves, even when maybe we will lose something. But we know that somebody else's happiness is so much more than our happiness. When you could put a smile on someone, when you could give them something, and even if it takes a little away from you, there is nothing like that. And that's where the Creator resides. And that's when the Creator comes and will give us whatever we want.